Hi guys, welcome once again. This today is a special podcast with myself, obviously, Lemmy 101 or Chris from the Indie Stone, and also Batsphinx of the Indie Stone forums, or better known as Will Porter.
Hello.
And today, basically, we're just going to have a general chat about all the NPC stuff that's going to be going into the next test build, and hopefully the next, well, obviously what will become the Steam release of the next version of Zomboid. I suppose Chris can start with a bit of an introduction first.
Yes, my name's Chris. I'm Lemmy 101, one of the programmers on the game.
One of the programmers. Don't be so coy. You're the lead programmer, the guy with all the brains as far as the code of the engine goes. Come on. Don't hide in the shadows, Chris. Come on.
And along with a lovely chap called Romain, who's Robert Johnson on the forums.
Awesome dude.
And basically, he started off as doing some. He's one of the better lure modders on the forums. Doing working with Fuzzstar on stuff like the farming mod and dismemberment mod and camping mod and having campfires and all these things. And he's now working with us on the game. He's been adding farming and stuff for the actual game.
Okay, so what are you working on? What's the meta game going on with those NPCs? Where are you at the moment?
Well, basically, in case you don't know what the meta game is, we introduced streaming into the game so that the character would no longer, the entire world would not be loaded up at the same time, and basically a section around the character is loaded up at any one moment as you walk along the landscape. So that saved a lot of memory and it removed the load screens. But what it also meant was we couldn't simulate the NPCs across the entire world effectively, because there would just be so much information in that no PC would be able to handle it. So basically, that meant that we had to come up with a solution to allow the survivors to survive outside of that area. And that's where the idea of the metagame came from. And basically, it's a more high-level, more event-driven engine for how the NPCs interact. So they'll move across. We know where all of the buildings are in the entire map. We just don't know what's in all the tiles. So we know where the front door and the back door is, for example. So we can just basically have them moving about in a simplified way between houses and triggering events with other NPCs or with a zombie population there to make an entire breathing world that could span hundreds of miles. And because it's not having to deal with pathfinding and all these really processor heavy things, you could simulate quite a lot of these in a large area and make everything feel consistent. And the idea is that we'll marry this with the conversation engine, so that if you are there, there's a scene that will play out, and if you're not there, then that scene won't play out, but the repercussions of that scene will affect the world. So if two people meet and one shoots the other, it'll know to create a dead body in that house when you actually finally get there.
I didn't realise that this is cool. I'm learning too. That's awesome.
So yeah, and but basically it's although it's what seemed like it was going to be of detriment to the game to have not be able to simulate outside of this area properly with the characters walking about, it's actually turned to an advantage, because as I'm sure anyone who plays the game is aware, that the current AI isn't great by any means. So that means that if there were other parts of the world actually simulating, the chances are they would probably die quicker than they actually should do, if that makes sense. Yeah. And it's just such a complicated task to make these behave in such a way that they would be able to survive better than a player using with the same limitations, but having to process all this stuff. So basically, it's actually turned to the advantage, because it allows us to have much more event-driven things happen in the world that are a lot more exciting. That's where, obviously, where you two come in.
Yeah, well, so basically what happens is that, I mean, we're starting off with relatively kind of simple stuff like interesting interesting ways to meet kind of like relatively static NPCs in their different safe houses, different scenarios and stuff like that. But also, I mean, there's also quite a I don't know. There's an awful lot of stages to it. Thinking about it, when an NPC group will go off on a raid to another house, like elsewhere on the map, and what you could do, you could just stand around and they'll go off, they'll turn into the metagame, and then they'll come back. Or what you could do is you could just follow them and just see the whole raid like pan out. And I've written lots of different dialogue for oh good, there's no zombies here, let's have a loot. And I've also written lots of dialogue for shit, we're all dying, this is hellish, run away, run away. And so yeah, you can follow that and see it and be part of that group. And then what Paul's been doing is kind of like making that all ready to go into the game. And then what Chris is doing,
I'm doing it intermittently amongst arm issues, but yeah, I've made big progress on getting it all in. There's just it's more the details that still need to come together, if that makes sense.
What's an ARM issue? Is that processor or something?
Sorry?
What's an ARM? Is it ARM issue?
ARM issue.
Oh, ARM issue. I thought you were talking about an AR. I thought there's processors. Yeah, because that's AR. Yeah, just for clarification, Paul's got Chris has got a dodgy arm at the moment, which is limiting stuff a little bit and is a bit annoying, but on the mend, so all is well.
Yeah, well, mate, got some mobile players interested there, thinking that they're getting a version of Zomboid on the mobile processor.
Not yet.
Yeah, cool.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so that it's that kind of stuff. I mean, and yeah, so the next thing I'm writing that I haven't actually put over yet is the stuff. Just I've done all like the stuff writing for you personally, sending a follower on a raid in the same way that in Assassin's Creed game you might send one of your little assassins over to, I don't know, Italy or whatever to kill a pope, and then they come back and report. So I've got all the go on a raid please with all the different mood sets and if they've got certain traits and whatever. But what the next thing I'm writing at the moment is what they say when they come back. You know, whether they had if they've been bitten or scratched or if it's been good or bad. And there's lots of different sort of subsets of what it'll be, and then I'll get it over to Paul, and then yeah, it'll all sort of start going over. So yeah, is there anything I've missed out, Paul, that people should know?
No, I don't think so. I think you've covered most of it there for what new NPC stuff's going in at the moment and what they can kind of expect. Going a bit deeper and for more of a gamer point of view, probably, I would say what you guys are used to at the moment, playing the game NPC wise, from touching on what Chris was talking about, was the way NPCs work is obviously you can come across them just running around trying to survive as per usual at the moment. But when you do, obviously you can either group with them or they don't want to group. But literally, you stop seeing survivors after the first week or two because they were playing the game as a real player would play the game. Obviously facing all those zombies, and obviously the AI wasn't quite up to scratch at that time. So after about a week or two, they were more or less dying to the zombies. So yeah, it was hard to still see NPCs further into the game. But now this whole meta system in Zombie AI Director basically allows us to introduce the NPCs to you at random points, which you may or may not, find exciting or stuff at the time. But literally, there's already 15 at least different ways you can meet an NPC for the first time at the moment, which, like I say, is all handled by the metagame and the Zombie AI Director. So you can come across NPCs in a much more interesting fashion than what you're currently used to. Instead of just finding one either dealing with a zombie in the street or running past you in the street, you're now going to come across them in certain set scenarios, like I say, of which we have about 15 or so at the moment, lots more to be added in the future, all of which have their own dialogues for the different types of characters each person can be. So straight away, even if each scene can only play out one way, you would have multiple different ways it would seem it could play out because of all of Will's brilliant different dialogue for each different sector. But on top of that, you've then got certain scenarios straight away which can branch off, so it can go different ways depending on if one NPC is a nice one or a nasty one, or depending on what you say and stuff like that. So that really amps up the amount of possibilities for the different kind of scenes you can come across, or the different ways scenes can play out. And that straight away is an absolutely brilliant improvement over what you're currently used to as the NPCs in the game. But yeah, on top of that, lasting longer in the game, you're still now going to have a chance to come across a group of survivors who have managed to survive because they've been playing the game using the metagame instead. So we've still been able to fairly reenact for them living in the zombie apocalypse, but in a more controlled fashion, so you can come across them later on down the game with better scenarios for coming back across them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I remember when it's like you say a set scenario, it's a set conceptual scenario, not like literal. It's like because there's so much dialogue variation. When you say a scenario, it's a scenario like you come across. You go into a house and it happens to be a house of a safe house of a bunch of people, and that's like a scenario in the sense of that's going to happen a lot in the game, but every way it can every time it happens, the outcome, the
outcome can change, or because one NPC in the city, you might come across the same scenario, for example, 5 times, but I guarantee you, if you only came across that same example 5 times, even with just the different dialogues alone, it would always seem somehow like a different scenario. But then, like I've said, with the added branching effects throughout those different meeting scenarios, they can really start changing completely, and it adds tons and tons more variations. But again, these are just opening scenarios. These are not going to dictate how you are then going to play the game with that NPC. These are just how you first meet that NPC. Everything from that point onwards is completely open-ended, and you make your own story. So these really are just like story starters, if you like, and you can either choose to accept them or not, basically by being a nice guy and helping them and having the dialogues go on and whatever and trying to get them to join you, and then it becomes open-ended. Or you can just think, well, I don't want an NPC to join with, so I'll just be nasty and I'll try and kill them straight away, which can sometimes obviously have adverse effects as well. Or, you know, you can just say, you might get an NPC, for example, shouting at you from a window saying, come over here, but you just think, well, that might seem a bit dodgy. It might well not be, you don't know, but because you're playing like that, you think, well, I'm not going to go anywhere near him, and you just run straight past. So even though it is a story opening, you've made your own story anyways by completely ignoring it and just walking on past.
I think it's important to say as well, just at the point of like development we're at, is that like once RC3 is out, I know people are so fucking tired of hearing this kind of thing, but at the same time, it is true that like there's me and Paul are kind of holding back a little bit of a tidal wave of stuff we've done already, and it's going to be so much easier to get this stuff into the game at this certain point that I don't know. Well, it certainly feels like we're getting towards it, but obviously it's more of a Chris thing than a me thing to say. But yeah, like the once we get into the production of this, people will see it so much more often.
Yeah, well, the thing about this is it's the system that's been put in place can be used for an absolute mass of extra gameplay through the NPCs. That it basically you and Paul have already done so much, but there's so much more that you'll do in the future, and that at that point that can be almost plugged in with an hour or two's work, whatever you know. It's just once you've got the system in place for these events to kick off, the amount of content we'll be able to put in that would actually have a massive impact in the gameplay, because of, you know, the dealing with NPCs it's such a fundamental change to how the game's played currently. The entire way about you go about playing the game will just invariably involve NPCs and their interactions with each other as much as the zombies. But not to say we're not going to have the desolate feeling at times as well. But yeah, it's such a huge change that it's hard to sort of imagine what it could be like after a year of development with you writing and scripting and me adding it in. And and the fact that you've got these NPCs moving around with these events, and these events can all be designed by modders quite easily, and plugged in with a set of conditions of how these things can trigger off, and then have their own scripts for them, and then a modder can just add an extra scene into the game.
So is it all in that Lua thing? Okay, right, this is where I reveal myself as knowing absolutely jack shit about coding and all this. But is it all in that Lua thing that you talk about?
The actual conversations are all in the conversation scripting language that we've had since the demo long before Lua went in.
Mm-hmm.
But Lua is the thing that kind of binds it all together. You have these event objects that are in Lua that specify the conditions and what happens if it happens away from you and what happens if it happens next to you, and then calls to the scripts. But that in itself, for anyone who starts to get the grips of Lua, isn't a very difficult thing to create, even once you have some knowledge of it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the existing scripting stuff, there's a lot of people on the forums who've already got experience in that. So I'd like to think there'll be a lot of modded content quite quickly as well.
Yeah, I think, for the concept of modding, definitely, at the minute, for story mods and stuff, people are just used to only using the scripting language, which, like you say, has been out, I think, since 1.4 or 1.5D or something like that. But this is going to open a whole new level, because obviously it's now NPC scenarios and all that type of stuff, and you are going to be able to, on a very basic level, just mod the script files to change dialogue and stuff, like I did in my Geordie mod. So people who aren't too crazy about delving into the new world of Lua, maybe they're a bit too scared, maybe they've never modded a game before, they can easily start off by using the scripting language, which is such a basic and easy language to get the grips of. But then people who are obviously a bit more advanced, or maybe have some Lua knowledge or want to start learning Lua, can then create new scenarios, or different ways the scenarios can play out. So you can have different dialogue if that's all you want to do, or you can also create completely new scenes or variations of the scenes using the Lua part as well.
And am I right in thinking that we'll be able to tailor the different dialogues and whatever to the sort of locations you meet the NPCs, the time of day and stuff like that? Is that all stuff that?
Without doubt. It's that's the idea with the Lua. It's got access to the entire game code, so it's anything can be tested. So it'll be incredibly powerful into what you can actually test.
Yeah, again, on a basic level, you could, for example, using Lua, have it so it could have somebody spurt a bit of dialogue if it was raining.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or if, you've seen a zombie in the street, for example, that could be handled by anything you can imagine that could happen in the game.
Mm.
You can basically almost use Lua to then fire off some dialogue or start a scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing, again, this is where we're kind of going beyond what will be in RC3 here, but something I'd quite like to do is just have different dialogue for the longer that you've survived. So I'd personally like, if you meet a survivor after 60 days, then they're going to be saying different things as opposed to one that you meet relatively early in the game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So really, I guess we can attach different dialogue and scenarios, whatever, to whatever different scenarios, the different variables of the game that people already know kind of affect their gameplay.
Yeah, it's gonna, even RC3 is going to be way beyond what people are thinking. You see on the forums a lot, people if a few people are, I'll still probably kill the zombies or I'll kill the NPCs and steal the stuff, and I think I'm not entirely sure we've got across how much RC3 will be affected by the NPCs. But
it is really it is among many other things. NPCs are definitely. This is why it's like NPCs have taken so long, because they are the core fundamental part of it, really, along with the streaming, obviously. So,
undoubtedly, and it's kind of one of these things that it's a big what's involved in getting this system in place is such a big hurdle compared to how it will be to expand on it later. And I think we're going to see much more of because already you've done so much dialogue. It's quite dialogue. You've wrote and you've scripted so much of it that
I've forgotten. Tell you what, I forgot. Like, I was like, Paul was showing me all this stuff. And I was like, did I write this? Because I just get into such a haze when I'm doing it. I'm just fucking rattling it out. And then I was like, Paul was talking in the vlog the other week, and I was like, are you sure? That many? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, okay, well, if you reckon. But yeah.
Yeah, it is, and that's it. And I think once we start tying in more traits and having different trait combinations and stuff, particularly, it's like, I mean, you've already got things playing out differently depending on the characters that are present. And now we've got like effectively observations. It's like traits, but you look at the character and you'll notice certain things about them, and then, like, some of these things might not be evident straight away. They might appear after.
So maybe after you've seen one of them fight a few zombies or something, you might then realise he's a coward. Or after you've spotted them enough, you might realise that they're a bit short-tempered and stuff like that. Yeah. You might not know at first when you first join them.
Yeah, and obviously in the long run, we'd want all the dialogue to represent these. Someone says something and then you learn that. But obviously, there's only so much you can write and script in a reasonable amount of time. So initially you might get these observations, but just through the amount of time you spent with them. But then later on there is always the potential of having effectively scenes that demonstrate these traits or just things they say, or and once we've got to that, you've got the real trust issues and character relations, and once this system is in place, it's the potential we've got for the NPCs.
It's like really going to mean you're going to start vetting who you want to possibly join your group, and it's all again going to start depending on the traits you've chosen for yourself. So maybe if you're like the boisterous leader type, that is going to affect other NPCs who may also see themselves as the leaderish type, so that might mean them may want to join you less, and then the people who are obviously looking for someone to protect them are going to be more inclined to join with you and all that kind of stuff. But again, at the same time, if you thought you could get away with it by choosing shy and stuff as your traits, then you're really going to find it hard to start attracting other people into your group.
And then there's the flip side, and there's like basically another thing is at the moment, every character has the potential to be a zombie killing nutter with a axe, but in the real world, like, a lot of people just wouldn't physically or mentally have what it takes to be swinging axes about at zombies' heads, and like, we're going to have more sort of representation of that ultimately in the professions and the character creation, where you might have a charismatic, funny, everyone loves them, but they're rubbish at fighting, and like the weak, and you pick weak and stuff.
Obviously, if you pick something like weak, then you're going to get NPCs who are looking down on you, who maybe you want to join up with because they are the strong type who you fancy you could send out quite a lot on looting missions. But are they really going to respect you if you keep sending them out? Or they're going to start distrusting you and maybe having issues against you, maybe wanting to take you out somehow eventually, or maybe making you distrustful to the rest of the group, so your leadership gets opposed by somebody else, and all that stuff's going to eventually start playing out a lot further down the line as well.
Yeah, and just on this is the long game that there's under
at the moment. Keep reminding that.
But yeah, I mean, literally the thing is, once, like Chris says, that this framework is going to be in for RC3 with all of this stuff that me and you will have already done so far, but then that's when the floodgates do have a chance of opening, because all these new traits that we start adding in are just going to be like inserted into what's already there. We don't have to create new systems for those. We can literally use the code in the Lua that we already have to just insert all these additional new dialogues for all these new traits alongside all the scenarios that are already present.
Yeah, there is an exciting thing there. There's some is the is what we are currently having to transplant the tutorial, Kate and Baldspot into the new map, and the thought occurs that, well, it's your idea, so you should.
Well, it was just something we hit on the last time we spoke, Chris. Obviously, with all this new NPC stuff going on, and us having the brainstorming sessions that we normally have, and getting carried away and getting excited for what you guys are going to see in the next version and onwards, it really started feeling like, with all this NPC stuff, that Muldraugh was now really going to start feeling like a real place, which is what we wanted to happen. Which is why we really stayed away from persistent. Which is why we stuck with persistent worlds type area rather than having randomly generated worlds and stuff. We wanted the place to feel real for everybody who played.
So people on the forums would be discussing places like they were a real place instead of a shared experience.
Like Minecraft style, you couldn't just say, like in Minecraft, I came across this dungeon and this happened. Right? If we had the system we're having, we want people to be able to say, I headed north for a couple of days and I came across this little hut. And we don't want people to lose that, because what we've seen off the forums already over the past year and a half, 2 years, is how much people love other people's stories. And what would be a real shame is if we had to make a game where one person could say, if you head into the next town and go to the southeast part of the town, there's like an ammo cache or something. We want other people to be able to share their story and give tips like that to other new survivors. Whereas that wouldn't have been possible in a randomly generated world. But like I say, with all that tied in and with all this new NPC stuff, that really did for me, especially as the main player of our team, if you like. Maybe Romain's obviously a big, massive player now as well. But it really did for me start to feel like this new version is going to be the start of a real living town that you're going to be playing in during the zombie apocalypse. And the further idea from that sprang, because obviously Kate and Baldspot are going to be in their set house in the tutorial mode, why not make it so that was also their house in survivor mode? So instead of just having tons and tons of randomly generated NPCs all running around either in the meta game or in the real game trying to survive, for example, in survivor mode, which is obviously currently known as sandbox mode, you could run up to, say, obviously, for example, Kate and Baldspot's house, and they could actually be living there in survival mode.
I should interject and say, like, we haven't really explained what survival mode is, because it sits in the thingy, and basically, we've got sandbox and survival now, where survival is the set standard of playing the game to get the message at the end saying how long you've survived in the right font. So that's like the definitive one. So anything we talk about might be in sandbox. You'll be able to turn it off. So it's not like...
So sandbox and survivor mode really are the same things, but in sandbox mode you're going to have the option to turn various features on or off, or have your slider settings for the amount of zombies and stuff. And where in survivor mode, that is your hardcore setting, where everybody is playing with the same version, with the same, obviously no mods, all that kind of stuff. So that is the only way, if people want to compete and post the longest survival score, that is going to be the only mode where you're going to be able to do that.
Adric, we are talking to you.
Yes, definitely. What's his best time? I think it's about 2 years or something you got through the last Harry, man.
Something ludicrous.
Crazy, yeah.
It's quite amazing, like.
So yeah, basically when we're talking about survivor mode, it's what you guys are currently used to as sandbox mode, but the new sandbox mode is going to be survivor mode, but with changeable options if you want to turn certain things on or off.
Low zombies, high zombies.
Yeah, maybe even no NPCs, some NPCs, lots of NPCs, only NPCs and no zombies.
Perhaps setting when like...
How long a day lasts and that kind of stuff, how much energy food gives you. There's many different options that we haven't really fully come up with yet.
And we'd basically, what we'd do is we'd print it in a different font on the that you survived for, just so that, I know people could probably mod to sort of get artificially, but it just goes to prove that it wasn't with anything tweaked with it,
Yeah, obviously you would still get your survival score in the sandbox mode, like you say. Yeah. But either with it being a different font or with a different badge showing up or something to show it was sandbox rather than survival.
Yeah. So just to sort of keep the validity of the survival times and stuff. But yeah, I mean, basically, sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so basically that's clarified that. But yeah, so the idea was to have, obviously, the current characters are only Kate and Ballspot, but there is going to be, obviously, as Will already knows as well, an influx of new characters either in the Kate and Ballspot story or in new stories further down the line. And I just had the idea, basically, because Muldraugh is really starting to feel like a real living place. I say living, to a certain extent. For me, it made sense that those characters would be also persistent in the survivor mode. So, you would know a certain house to be Kate and Ballspot's house. I'm using that example, obviously, because that is the only story we have in the game that people know of at the moment. So bear with us, guys, if I do keep using this as an example. But yeah, you could run up to their house, maybe say it on the first day, and you could come across them, say, when Bob is out looking for food, which is part, obviously, of the tutorial mode. Or you could, for example, come across them when with the house on fire, and Bob upstairs trying to save Kate because he's just burnt the house down with the soup because he's gone upstairs to listen to the radio. Obviously, you could come across them further down the line. So, for example, you might turn up to the house and there's 2 dead corpses in the bedroom and nobody in sight. Or Kate and Ballspot are in the bedroom and there's a dead radar on the floor with them. That kind of stuff. So, basically, that's where the idea started.
Yeah.
And as we started bouncing ideas backwards and forwards, it kind of grew a bit.
Well, it's basically the fact that since we have to port it over to the new map anyway, we're putting it into the metagame itself. So if you have an NPC and you say go to that building, if you say that with Bob to the shed in the back thing, if you're playing, then it'll give that as a quest. But if you're not playing, then it'll tell the NPC to go there as under the AI. And if they're not, and if you're in the metagame and they're at the other side of the world, then they'll just move between the buildings without any sort of collision checks. So it just works on any level, and then that means that anything that's created as a story will have the quests that line up with the events that happen in survival mode with the AI controlling them. So everything you add automatically works in the metagame.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this would apply to modder stories as well. So if a modder, there's been, perhaps because of how people find it difficult, but there is a lot less stories than there is other types of mods currently, would you say?
Yeah, probably story mods are probably one of the least available mods on the forums at the moment, but certainly with all this new NPC stuff going in and the return of story mode, I can definitely see a lot of story mods popping up. And
especially if that story is going to influence people's games on the survival mode, it's all more reason for them to want to want the modders to want to have their story there, not only for people to play, but to sort of influence people's games in a million ways in the survival mode. So it's just quite exciting.
Definitely, yeah. So obviously you'd be able to have, like, if your modder just wanted to do it on the basic level, doing a story mod, you could just have it as a story mod, just in story mode. But if they wanted to get a bit more advanced after that and maybe learn a bit more Lua, they would also be able to add the Lua commands into the rest of the code to then have it so that story could persist in survivor mode as well. And you as a player could come across it.
And we could do something. Something along the lines of you have to complete the story, and then once you complete the story and you've seen it from a first-person narrative angle, then it appears in the survival mode. I'm sure people could get around that if they wanted.
Yeah, but it would be a cool kind of unlock reward almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so obviously once you've played one of the stories successfully in story mode, then obviously those characters would then start persisting in survivor mode. I think that would be absolutely awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe you'd even get a Steam achievement as well one day. One day. But yeah. No, but for me, I think one of the things I'm most excited about is, do you guys ever play Fallout 1 and Fallout 2?
Yes, a long time ago, but yeah.
Do you remember when you used to be travelling a long distance, and then every now and again you used to get a completely random, weird scenario?
Merchants, but like really weird stuff.
Yeah, well, sometimes it could be like the Bridge of Death from Monty Python and stuff like that. And it would feel like you when you played it, especially back then, you thought, I could be the only person that ever came across this. This is amazing because it's such a random thing. I just really like, and there's already a little one that we've written already that's just based on whether or not you're in Spiffos, and there's an NPC there. But but it's little stuff like that I really want to make people feel special. Do you know what I mean? Like thinking, 100 people might out of 100 other players, I'm the only one that was in this place at this time, and this crazy batshit thing happened to me, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, and then they put a YouTube video of it up.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, this happened to me, and everyone's like, Jesus, yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, this is exactly what drew me into Zomboid in the first place. I mean, when I first decided to start doing YouTube videos, it was all based around Project Zomboid, because I'd seen, obviously, how successful Minecraft had been on YouTube. And I thought, well, if there's ever going to be another game coming along that, for me, could possibly do it, in my eyes, it was Zomboid, because of the way the feature list.
You're not allowed to say that now you're on the team.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm sticking with it. That's how I feel now, and it's still how I feel now. So if people think I'm just saying that because I'm now on the team, tough. It's not the case, and you're wrong, right? But yes, anyways. Literally because even just seeing the feature list at the time, because it was such an early version, for me, what really drew us in was the fact that it really felt like you were going to be able to create your own story. And that is what people love about Minecraft videos. And I can really see that's what people are really, really going to start loving, especially with the next version of Project Zomboid videos. It doesn't matter if you've seen one person's series before, you could happily watch 15, 20, 30 different people all playing the same version of Zomboid, but everything is going to be different in everybody's story. Everybody's going to be able to create their own story from scratch.
Well, the ultimate aim, I think, what we'd really like to do is get to the point where someone could watch a YouTube video that had all these NPCs interacting in such a way that they wouldn't necessarily know that this was just a completely sort of sandboxy situation, and would think it was a bit of a story.
It has to be scripted, yeah.
Yeah, that would be the dream, wouldn't it? To get, but that's what we're striving for. Like how far we'll get along that line, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think a good example of. I mean, I'll say this because this is actually impossible in the way we're building the world. But if and when we actually get towards building cities, and there are buildings high enough, what I really want to do is have, like, so you'll go into a room at the top of a skyscraper, and there'll be someone about to jump out the window, and you can have this, this don't do it, or just jump, you bastard, whatever, I don't give a shit. Anyway,
with that as well, the one thing I thought of as well was walking along the bottom of a skyscraper. You just have an NPC body just splat on the floor next to you.
You just stole my punchline.
Oh, I'm sorry, no shit.
But that's the sort of thing that that is a good example of what the sort of things we'll be able to do, because you'd either be, you could have there's two ends of the same scenario. You can either just see a falling body and just think, shit, that was pretty dark, or you could or you could meet the guy at the top as well.
Exactly,
and that's definitely the. I mean, like I say, the reason I'm bringing up that example is because at the minute Muldraugh isn't a place with skyscrapers, so the people would just break a leg or something. It'd be a pretty shit suicide attempt, wouldn't it? Muldraugh jumping out the window. But obviously, maybe jumping down the stairs would be best. I mean, let's face it. I think
the stairs are pretty lethal.
There's anyways, aren't there? But yeah, that's the beauty of the system. I mean, that one scene would only be one scene, but because of having lure involved, you can then say, well, that is one scene, but the player can come across it maybe at the start of the scene, or maybe halfway through or towards the end.
And not only that, but then you just have a player in an NPC that in the metagame that's in the city who's depressed might make the decision. They have a certain chance of making the decision to kill themselves, but then that NPC would have had a story that have got depressed somehow because of two people in the group, maybe a relation dying, and then they went into the city, and then that could lead to that scenario happening. So, if you got there,
if you're on the right place at the right time, then you might see it happening at some point.
And that makes it rare enough that it still feels special.
Like jumping off buildings, yeah, definitely.
So it's the way everything ties in. It's
I think the other thing to say is that, like, is just to say, underline the fact we are aware that it will be quite a lot of work, especially to write all this stuff. I mean, my God, when I heard about your guys' ideas for getting Kate and Baldspot as meeting them and stuff like that, and all the ways that could go, I just thought, just having these visions of these word docs upon word docs, it's just endless. But I can write quite fast, so like, it's like it'll be fine, and we are aware it is going to be pretty complex, but but that's what we want to do, and we're fairly sure we can do it. So
yeah, well, it was always the picture of the game from the outset. It was the NPCs, and it was the interactions between them, and like trust issues. We said didn't we on the plan features? Trust issues. That's what you want. You want like the leader of the group getting usurped by, and tough guy says, "Right, I'm in charge now." And you want all these things and that's the ultimate aim. And when once we've got the system in place, it's a case of Will writing the dialogue, Paul scripting up the dialogue, and me spending half an hour making a lure event, or maybe Paul doing a lure event, and then that's in, and that will fit into the game naturally. You know what I mean? That's the huge thing that we're excited about.
Yeah, and that's why RC3 is so vital to nail and get the NPC system working 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and obviously as well as getting them to survive better, you are going to see the start of what you've already mentioned, the whole interaction with people in your group and the whole group dynamic starting to happen between groups. So, like Chris says, you might have somebody who's depressed, which starts bringing down other people in the group, or might start deciding to like do things which really isn't in the group's best interest and all that kind of thing. So, as well as the NPCs being a lot more survivable and encounterable, you're going to feel a lot more like real people who are actually there to affect your story.
Yeah, it'll be softly catch your monkey and me, the kind of affair. It will, a lot of what we're talking about will be, several updates down the line. But this is definitely the RC3 is the stepping stone to all this stuff.
We've got NPCs being bit by zombie stuff. And there is a lot more than people would expect. I want to just get that across.
There's not just encounters. Obviously, there's tons and tons of obviously all the random dialogue you've written, or stuff that could happen within a scenario, or just like randomly where you're running around with your group or by yourself. Like he says, maybe fighting the zombies. There's all the dialogue in for that. There's all the dialogue in for healing people, getting healed by somebody, saying thank you, or saying, I need this, or here, have this, all that kind of stuff, So there is going to be, it's not just scenarios and events, it's so much more like life and stuff.
Yeah, for example, I've written one where, like, if you meet somebody, like, in the dark, in the rain, just a random encounter, just an NPC, it'll be like going, I really don't know why me and you are like outside in the dark. This is really dangerous. Stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, basically, two
NPCs in a room at night, and one of them decides to turn on the light, and you tell them stop being stupid, turn the light off and stuff. Yeah,
just little bits and bobs like that. I mean, it'll start out as flavour stuff, but as we go on, we'll make these things matter more in your long-term survival game.
Yeah, another direction is going. You've got the reports of how things went on the looting mission, and that information stored by the events in Lure, which again you'll be able to basically effectively create a journal of events that have occurred, and then trigger dialogue when they return for those events about how many, if there was any casualties, or how many zombies there were or whatever, but that's built into the metagame. So
we kind of had an idea like this after I played that Safe House Diaries, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because that was, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Will. It's Safe House Diaries. It's available on Tesura at the moment.
No.
And literally all it looks like a board game, and really that's what it is. It's basically, I suppose if you like, it's obviously a much more advanced version of what we're trying to base our metagame around in a way. But it's all based around you have your group of survivors. and you start off, you get a map, and you're in a building, and you have to send people out to go looting, or like have them looting in the house you're in, and have them boarding up the house and looking for zombies outside and dealing with the zombies and stuff. But it really, really focuses on group dynamics.
Yeah, like you did that, like spreading a rumour, didn't you?
Yeah, like literally, if you've got somebody in the group who is unhappy with another member of the group, you can maybe spread a rumour about one of the group, which helps bring people together and stuff.
Oh wow, that sounds really good.
Really affect all, and like literally, it gives you an overview of like everybody's relation with everybody else in the group, using like coloured lines. So you've got like a red line between two people, and then them don't get on, and if you've got a green line, they do get on.
So
Even it goes down to the extent where if you put two people on the same task who get along, they will produce so much better results than two people who don't get along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's you were nagging me for ages to play it, weren't you?
Yeah, but basically how it plays is you set the tasks for each person, and then every hour it plays by an hour by hour basis. But at the end of the hour when it's played out, it gives you a kind of diary style report of what happened in that hour.
Yes,
and after playing that, I thought, well, with this whole metagame system, would it not be cool, say, like, you decided instead of going out helping people loot, you decided to send a team out looting, and obviously you wanted them to come back and tell you what happened, and obviously we can deal all that with the dialogue. But for example, say you sent it was only two of you, and you sent one person out looting by himself, and he never came back. We kind of wanted a way of being able to find out what happened.
Yeah.
Like, so you could, like, say, you never come back, you don't know where he's gone, you sent him off in a certain direction, a couple of days later you head off in that direction and find a dead body. And that's where this whole kind of report kind of feature came from.
Yeah, well, that's, again, should clarify, that's not in RC3. Like,
yeah, that won't be in RC3. This is, again,
we're talking about a lot of stuff that's not in RC3 on this. But
there's a lot of stuff in RC3 which obviously we have talked about, but yeah.
Right, well, we should go through we should do a rundown of everything about the NPCs that is in RC3, because you have to understand the system and how what we're seeing of what we can do with it is so exciting that every time you start trying to talk about what's going to be in, you end up just reeling off and like going like, oh, and then this.
So Chris, list what's in RC3 then.
Right. Okay. In RC3, you'll have the complete metagame system. So the NPCs will, when they walk away from you, they'll turn into metagame characters that trigger events such as deciding to go on a looting mission and deciding who's going to go, then going to the looting mission. There's a chance that stuff could happen en route if they go out through zombie territory, and then when they get there, if they're split up to take both exits, and then what happens when they enter the building, and then and all the elements, and then going back and then saying what happened. All that is in there. There is a lot of dialogue. There is a lot of situations, and there is a lot of variations in the situations. List all the stuff you've written, as I said, because my head's been in the metagame for so long. I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Well, there's different meeting scenarios. There's just there's general chit chat, general follower chit chat. There's kind of just meeting people out in the rain, whatever. There's sending a follower off on a raid after you've assigned after you've kind of like designated what your safe house is, which is like another new thing that'll be in there. And
I just remembered there's the quests.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of quests as well, which is more like a bit of a proof of concept more than anything, isn't it? Like just someone will say, "Hello, I'm sick. I need some painkillers. I'll give you a gun." Or "Hello, I'm going to kill you. Leave my house now." just stuff like that. So that means they're very basic quests, but they're kind of like showing where they're things that are going to show where we need to go more than anything else. But and just like Paul, have I missed anything else out?
So yeah, obviously the meta system then, there's 15 different opening meeting scenarios for the new NPCs, which, like I say, can go in an absolute ton of different ways, so it's going to seem like thousands of different meeting scenarios. The quests, like you've said, Christ, there's loads of stuff, man, really, isn't there, when you think about it?
Yeah.
Just trying to think of it all at one time, really.
And this is obviously just the NPC stuff. Obviously we've got the new map, and I can't say enough like how much work's gone. Mash and Andy have done on. You know what's it called? Mash. You know, called Andy. Yeah, the amount of stuff Mash and Andy have done on that. It's like, again, people have seen the map from zoomed way out, but like the amount of buildings, the amount of tiles is quite astonishing, really. And obviously there's all of the improvements to the sprites so there is a lot, the combat system and everything. There is a lot of other stuff that's in RC3. Another thing Andy's been doing, I'm sure anyone who follows him will know that he's been reworking the sprite 3D to sprite system. Because obviously when I initially did it, I kind of hacked it together so we could get something in the game quite quickly that functionally just did what it needed to. And he's basically rewritten the entire system, because obviously being an artist and the programmer, he's been able to optimize how it works and make it make the colouring a bit nicer and palletize it better and stuff. So he's really de-blurred the characters, which will make them look a lot better. So we're really excited about that. Not so much, the version that's currently out there was palletized a bit too much, so some of the colours, the oranges were a little bit unnatural and things like that, and there wasn't really much definition. So the characters, along with the new animations, they look a lot better now, although we still can't really do a screenshot because there's a couple of technical hitches. But yeah, we're really excited about that as well, because it's gonna make the character animation, the characters look a lot better. And he's done beards and glasses and different hairdos from, like, you know, he's done like one's called Picard, so you can, and like there's little goatee beards, full beards, mustaches, you know, and the amount of variation. And you know, with the women there's quite a lot of hairstyles, no facial hair, but like, yeah, but they make up for it with more hairstyles, and obviously they've got the different clothing and stuff, and basically the actual variation in the NPCs is going to be so much greater in this version that with the character traits we'll hopefully have a lot of association with people feeling like real, like their own characters, as opposed to just being cookie cutter with two different heads. So that's a huge thing that will add a lot as well. So we're looking forward to people seeing that. But the important thing
is going to be back in for the new version, obviously back at least back up to the point that you're used to. The way that comes in. Obviously, once we get some animations for Kate on crutches or what have you, that will be able to progress.
I don't think Andy liked the idea of Kate on crutches.
I think he's already.
Oh, really?
Out. Yeah, he's doing crutches, and then there'll be a weapon as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so basically, Kate will be on the crutches.
You see that listeners can already sort of see the Project Zomboid development in action. Every now and again, something just comes out, and you're like, "Oh wow, we're doing that! That's amazing!"
Yeah, so and obviously there's the NPC looting scenarios where you can send your group off, or you can go with your group looting. There's also or like the random chat for like being in the dark, or fighting zombies, just you and one other guy. And it's not just for groups, obviously. It's there's a lot of stuff in there that you can spout when you're by yourself in certain situations.
There's a lot.
Whether it's with you and one other person in certain situations, you and up to 5 other people in certain situations, you know. So there's a ton of stuff depending on if you like to be by yourself or be with other NPCs in big groups, small groups. There's loads of different stuff for all the different dialogue.
Well, if you get an aggressive, nasty NPC on their own and they happen to arrive at your house, then, you know, they might rob you, you know, and threaten to kill you. Like,
I don't think I've written one for that exact thing yet, but that's definitely on the menu.
Oh,
that's definitely cool. That's on my to-do list as well. And the other thing on my to-do list, again, it might not be for RC3, but certainly would be for soon after, is just general NPCs who are just completely lost it. They're no use to you whatsoever. Yeah. They're taking an overdose or something like that. Who won't join whatever, but they're just there to give an added flavour of despair and horror. So that'll be in as well at some point.
And we should also say, obviously, Romain's been working with us for a couple of months, and obviously all his stuff. I've rambled about it before, but all his stuff, the farming stuff, the camping stuff, him and Thuztile's stuff,
The amount of bug fixes that he's done already as well.
Yeah, and
that's
all the bug
immense.
fixes. I mean, the important thing with this release is why that, although obviously every day that goes by it's not released, we are sorry for, but in a way we know this is the right move. And no matter how long it takes, we need to get it on the straight and narrow, on a straight track, and it'll be done when it's done. Because we want this one to be right. So everything from the UI to the controls to the animations to the NPCs, we're trying to get everything to feel, even though it won't be complete, everything to feel complete enough to be a game that's not a buggy game or a game with a bit missing there and a game. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, well, and also just get it to be just a stable foundation for then those
yes.
for all that other stuff to be, as people have been listening to build on. We will be able to introduce stories and scenarios and dialogue and new maps and stuff like that in a just a lot more timely fashion.
Yeah, we just slot it in, and then and we're also just doing the trick that Romain said they used at his company, which is having a frozen build of the game and one they actually actively develop on and merging all the bugs over. So we couldn't do it for this one because we didn't have the system in place, but now we do. We'll be able to do bug fix builds regardless of what development's going on, where currently if there was something big in development it meant that we couldn't really release a version. So that's even when there isn't content going in, we would be able to fix bugs and release a build as soon as we had a few bugs fixed and it was worth releasing a build, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just I guess it's a situation with, we know this is taking a ridiculous amount of time, but we're doing it to get back. I know obviously we got shook up with the events of last year and we never quite righted the ship, and this is what we're doing now. And we may take a bit of flack for the time we've taken, but it'll be worth it once we have that solid foundation to work from. Well, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gone will be the days when people on the forum are asking which is the best version to play.
Yeah.
Because there'll only be one unanimous response, and that's going to be RC3 until the next version that comes out.
And until that's true,
yes,
we can't release it because we've had too many buggy builds and we've
Yeah. So what you said with Romain, that means that even when RC3 is out, obviously bug fixes are no longer waiting on content updates that have been made at the same time as well.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
So and obviously as well with the metagame and with the new map production system that Easy Pickings has been working on with us, which is phenomenally good. From the entire world to buildings, you've got this tool chain now, which we're really excited for people to see. But with that and with the event scripting, it means that a lot of the development can be done outside the actual game code. So it's that's disjoint. That could almost go on. So they can just be slotted in as and when they're done and pushed out in whatever updates come in. It makes a lot of the content of the game, the NPCs and the map, not really involve much in the way of code or anything to produce, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think another thing that people should be aware of as well is the fact that is the new website. We really to say we're pleased with it is something of an understatement. It is really. Have you seen it, Paul?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No.
Get Chris to show you because it is. It's not us making it, obviously. It's we just got together with this really cool company called We Are Modular, who are amazing, and we're really pleased with it. And on there, not only will there be a lot more space for different sorts of blogs, community blogs, development blogs, sort of tech help blogs, stuff like that, all arranged in a really nice, cool way. But also, it'll be a lot more obvious what the new stable build is, what the new public test build is, just stuff like that. The user experience it will be a lot less bumpy for new people coming to Zomboid.
Cool, can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
and we're gonna do a little screening on the blog.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I guess, seeing as we're saying it out loud, I guess we will. I won't. Yeah, I'll just do a grab of what it is. It's still work in progress. I haven't quite finished it yet, have they? But, just so people can kind of see what they're going to get.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then we're going to eventually travel down into the forums and do the same thing there, because obviously the forum software is a bit broke and it won't update, so we really need to get a more solid foundation for that as well. So,
yeah, we'll have to do that before there's an influx of hopefully an influx of new people.
So and that's
it.
Anything else?
I think we've given too much information now, to be honest.
Okay, right. Edit out that middle 3 hours, and we'll go over the bits around it.
Cool. All right. Well, cheers for listening. Oh, actually, no. What am I doing? It's your channel, Ringo.
That's not a bother. Thank you very much for listening, guys. This has been Ringo D123, Lemmy 101, and Batsphinx, otherwise known as Paul, Chris, and Will. Hope you had fun listening to our rants and ravings about NPCs over the past hour or so. Again, thanks for watching, and hope to see